Good afternoon, everyone. I hope that you're enjoying the second day of Techni Summit so far. Today's panel is really special for two reasons. The first one, that's because that we are talking about two different venture capital ecosystems, a mature one like the US market and an emerging one like the MENA region market. We are going to discuss the challenges, the opportunities, the similarities, and the differences. And the second reason why this panel is so special, because I'm honored to join the panel with two icons in the startup ecosystem. Both of them have contributed directly in the progress of the startup ecosystem in the region. I have with me here Namek Zu'bi, founding partner of Silicon Badia, and Hany Al-Sonbaty, managing partner of Sawari Ventures and co-founding partner of Flat 6 Labs. So before we dig into the panel, let's do a round of introductions. Let's start with Hany. Hany, nobody in the ecosystem doesn't know you. You have a long resume of achievements. Please give us a quick brief about yourself and Sawari and Flat 6 Labs.
Okay. Thank you for that kind introduction. It's wonderful to be here. You're very kind. There are more people who don't know me now than know me. The younger generation is expanding, which is great. We did something good. It's always like on a treadmill to be relevant. That's the main challenge. But the nuts and bolts of it. I'm the co-founder of Flat 6 Labs, and I'm also the co-founder of Sawari Ventures. Flat 6 Labs is a seed investor. Sawari Ventures is probably more of a seed of a Series A, and Series A plus. We work in Egypt. Sawari Ventures invests in Egypt, Tunisia, and Morocco. Flat 6 Labs also adds to that Saudi Arabia and UAE and Jordan. And we have Beirut, that's history.
Thank you so much, Hany. Let's move to Namek. Namek, you have a long journey, started from Wall Street until you become the founding partner of Silicon Badia. Please give us a brief about yourself and Silicon Badia.
Thank you so much. So, try this. Test. Oh, perfect. Thank you, Hany. My name is Namek Zu'bi. I am founder and managing partner of Silicon Badia. We're a global VC fund. We've been around for 10 years, invested in over 100 companies spread between the US and the region, including Egypt. We are a seed to Series B investor globally. Across those markets. We're sector agnostic, and we're excited to invest more into Egypt. We've been around in this market for a while, and we see changes happening, and every year is different. So we're very excited to be here with you and obviously Hany.
Thank you so much, Namek. And for myself, my name is Osama. I'm working as a portfolio manager at Edventures. Edventures is a corporate venture capital for Nahdat Masr Group. Nahdat Masr is one of the biggest publishing houses in the region. In Edventures, we have an incubation and acceleration program for EdTech, and we have a direct investment program that we invest directly in EdTech startups. Up till now, we have invested in 13 EdTech startups, and we have accelerated and incubated more than 70 EdTech startups. So let's fire up this panel with our first question. How does the venture capital landscape between the US and MENA region are similar, and what are the differences between US and MENA region? Let's start with Hany.
I'll give this to Namek because he worked in both, so he's got. I would like to hear his. My experience in investing outside of the Middle East is tangential. So we'll start with you.
Okay, the spotlight on you.
Thank you. I think we as Silicon Valley have been fortunate to be early in both ecosystems. And in the US, early, mostly in the New York tech ecosystem. Obviously, Silicon Valley has been around for a while. But, so we were lucky to see the differences and similarities between both. I think with any successful startup ecosystem in the world, you need, the flywheel to kick in, and the flywheel is a constant churning of startups, that come and go and either fail or succeed, and you repeat that cycle, with high velocity, and that's how you get a startup ecosystem. Well, I think obviously the US is ahead when it comes to that, because the ecosystem is more mature. An ecosystem, I mean startups, the founders themselves, the teams they hire, the capital markets, the lawyers, the regulation, foreign exchange mechanism. I thought the banking system, but according to what happened with SVB, maybe that's not necessarily true. But you need that flywheel to kick in order for you to have a sustainable and long-term, successful startup ecosystem. And the US has that, and I was able to see that co-created, in New York and other parts outside of Silicon Valley. In the MENA, every year, we grow bigger and bigger. I think when us and Sawari and obviously Hany started before, when we started, it's night and day versus today. It keeps getting better and better, and I think we're going to keep getting there. As these pieces mature that I spoke about.
Well, I mean, that's a lived experience on paper. Probably the benchmark is the Californian ecosystem or very specific geography. Even other parts of America aren't as advanced. But as Namek said, year after year, the Middle East is making great strides. I think at some level we will reach the limits of our legal systems, our financial systems, at the depth of our service providers, but we're not there yet. So at least we look, in probably in my lifetime, I expect the overall value of transactions in the ecosystem to multiply by another 10. Yeah, one more order of magnitude in my lifetime. And that would be far, far, far greater than anything I had ever anticipated even 1 decade ago. So we're on the right track. We're never going to be as good as the West Coast of America. They have a critical function of that is time and other intangibles that are not available to us, at least not in our lifetimes.
So we talked about the present of the venture capital system in the US and the MENA region. Let's talk about a little bit about the future. Last year, many changes has happened due to the economic crisis and the recent one with the SVB. How do you think the future of the US and the MENA region venture capital system will look like, let's say, in the upcoming 2 or 3 years?
Okay. Well, you have to define the future. The immediate future is some struggles. It's not going to be as easy as it was 18 months ago. The US in general is much more resilient than any other economy. They have this way of circulating assets and they have a way of rebounding. They rebounded after 2008. They rebound faster than Europe in almost every aspect of their financial and their financial life. And even SVB, the efficiency with which they're handling it is really shocking. For us, the long-term growth in the region is undeniable. It's the saving grace. Along the way, if we talk about the immediate future, there'll be some pain. In some places, there'll be a lot of pain. But again, it doesn't really affect the long-term trajectory of where we're heading. So for me, the future is very bright. maybe there's a cloud, but it will pass.
Yeah, I think the number one sustainer of startup ecosystems globally is exits. Because exits keeps that flywheel going. It makes sure investors make money and are happy to come back and invest, and make sure the investors that gave them that money are giving them more money to invest. It makes sure that startups and their families have money to do what they need to do or invest. It makes sure employees are encouraged to go out and start their own companies, or which is why we advocate for ESOP and stock ownership. So I think that's the next phase in MENA, and we've come a long way. I remember when maybe there were 2 or 3 VC funds in the region, and almost no Series A, B activity, very little, Flat 6 wasn't around, so we're coming a long way, but I think the next key is the exit activity, because excitement bubbles can only take you so far, once the excitement fades, which it always does, by the way, because running a startup and successfully running a startup is super hard. It's very hard. That's why a lot of people don't do it or shouldn't be doing it. Now everyone is.
It's the hardest thing you will ever do in your life, guaranteed.
So I think you need that to happen, so people feel it's real, and like Hany said, we're going to go through tough times. And we need people to be patient. We need startups to be patient. We need investors. We need our investors to maybe be patient a little bit.
I have the same one.
I know, that's what I'm saying. We need to be a little bit more patient.
I want them to be committed. I mean, you cannot build the resilience of an ecosystem over 5 years. We need multiple cycles. And I think the sort of investors we have are intelligent enough to know that judge us by multiple cycles, not a snapshot.
Yeah, well, I think like one topic, VC funds, being 10-year funds, 10+2. I don't think that fits for our side of the world.
I actually never thought of it. It was one of those givens. It was one of those givens that you had to work with, and there really hasn't been much innovation at that level about evergreen funds, rolling funds, stuff like that. Maybe the time is now, but there isn't really an emerging consensus.
Do you want to add something, Namek?
Yeah, we're having fun. خلينا نتسلى شوي أنا وهاني. I think, a good example, our first institutional regional fund was a 2014 fund, Badia Impact 1.
Yeah.
And we have about 8 companies out of 15 or so that are still around. And they're now finally, after almost 10 years, hitting that J-curve, that once we want to hold them for another 5.
Okay.
But
okay. I've done that before, and the only way to do it is to convince your LPs to roll it over and renegotiate with them the percentage of the carry and all of that, and reset the whole thing. But no, but 100%. Listen, it's not just us. The whole private capital management industry will be shaken over the next decade, and whether they will discuss the 2% of our fees or whatever, whether we'll discuss the duration. These are all things up for grabs. But like you, we're stuck with the legacy, right? And our job is to supersede their expectations. I mean, they tell you they expect X return, but in private, right, they probably are pleasantly surprised by how it's going so far. But they'll never tell us that. But and Farid is not going to send them that video.
Yes, let's delete that video. But I want to, one experience me and Hany have been through, which is something that people are talking about a lot today, is swivel, right? And, when you go through something like swivel, where you start at, ground zero with a couple of people and get to the NASDAQ and, create a global, player, and then that disappears in 9 months, right? It's very important that instead of, being dissuaded from joining a startup or starting another company, if you're the founder or one of the employees, or even if you're an early investor like us, it's important to just take that in stride, because that's the nature of this business. Learn from it and go back and build better, right? So Egypt is going to see a wave of failures. We are seeing a wave of failures, by the way, right? Whether they're publicly announced or will be in the next 6 months, okay? Because we look at everything here, and so do you guys. We can't, let's not, make fun or look at these failures and chastise them, right? Let's look at them, let's learn from them, let's go out and build something better, right? Because that's how we all benefit as an ecosystem.
Swivel is heartbreaking at so many different levels, not least the personal level, given that we've all gotten to know and love Mustafa and his team. It's actually a first of its kind in the Arab world, in the sense that nothing in the Arab world has gone so high and then crashed so fast, so as to literally create $1 billion worth of value in less than 5 years and then to lose it in 9 months. That's just unheard of in this part. It happens a lot in NASDAQ in America, and they circulate the assets, but for us it's a new experience. And anybody who criticizes people for trying and failing, right, is in a very, very dubious moral position, because unless they are doing something similar, or they should be quiet, the lessons will be learned. Like in anything, good players will continue to grow and bad players will be weeded out, and that's part of the growth. And that actually differentiates us between us and the Americans' time. They have had at least 60, 70 years extra of doing this, right? So seriously, anybody that makes fun of people who have, touched this, float so close to the sun and then collapsed, just send them over to me. I'll set them straight. And Namek will be next to me. He's a bit bigger than me, so he can. Yeah, it's uncool.
You got it right. You got it right, Hany. So Namek, you mentioned that a few years ago we only can find 2 or 3 funds here in the region, but now we can find dozens. How do you think about the future of the Western investors here in the region? We can consider the past 4 or 5 years as a testing phase for them, like they are testing the market. But do you think that they are satisfied with the market so far, and are they continue to come into the MENA region again?
Yeah, I think when we started, because I was based in the US already when we launched Silicon Badia, I would literally take our companies and go to all of these offices and try to convince these US investors, and even in Europe and London, to invest, right? And we weren't even close to being on the radar. I think only a couple of people back then, like Lee Fixel, who was at Tiger, were looking, or GA on a larger scale. But as time progressed, and the stats show that, right? If you look at Magnet or any of the other data sources, you'd see that there's more foreign capital that's interested in coming to the region, which is a good thing, because we need more capital in this region. We need more institutional capital, and we need more growth stage capital. The problem with international capital is they're the first to leave. Me and Hany, if we go through another revolution and another devaluation and whatever you want, we're still going to be here.
Yeah, I live here. You live here. We're not going anywhere.
We believe, right? They don't have to. They'll just pick up their bags and say, I put X million in this company. I'm just going to go to Brazil or India or China or back home, or especially during global crises like we're going through right now. Whenever a global crisis happens, investors retrench back home. So they're the first to leave, right? So again, I go back to the word exits. Once we start showing that this ecosystem, whether it's in Egypt or Saudi, or Saudi has its own problems, by the way. I know they're out there and talking very loudly, just like Dubai did 5 years ago. They have problems too, by the way. They just know how to pay $100,000 for a press release to show that they don't. But we need to show exits. If you show, exits and a sustainable ecosystem, more money will come in. And I think we're getting very close to it. We're getting very, very close.
So, Hany, what do you think?
I mean, there's nothing much to add. There's nothing much to add to this. There wasn't enough VCs or enough. I always think that the bottleneck, at least I thought that last year, that the bottleneck to the growth for the venture capital industry are enough people who have done investments in high growth companies. A lot of the investors, a lot of the people were 2-3 years of experience. They haven't seen the up and down cycles. You need to get a feel for that. On the flip side, at some level, I would have thought that someone like myself who has been doing this for more than a decade is also at a disadvantage in the sense that maybe you're missing something, maybe you're stuck in your old ways. So there's a nice balancing act, but the more players, the better. The more people involved, the better. The more people that have tied their careers to this, the better. They will find ways to raise money. They will find ways to exit. They will create many more relationships outside what we know is possible. The world is a huge place. There's a lot of money out there. There's a lot of opportunities. The more people involved, the better. So even if it's all part of this chaotic Wild West, it's still better than nothing.
Totally agree. So, both of you have dealt with hundreds of founders who are raising funds, and you saw what's right and what's wrong. We would love to hear from you. What are the most famous mistakes that the founders are doing while raising the funds, and what advice would you like to give them? I know it would take a whole hour to do that, but let's see.
I mean, okay, I'm going to say this, I'm going to shut up, and you can't quote me on it. The good advice prior to... Oh, you're recording.
Everyone take their phones out, please.
Right. Believe it or not, the good, prudent advice you gave to someone prior to 2020, prior to the last 2 years, was probably the wrong advice to give them, right? Because because there was so much capital coming in, so advising them to be prudent in their approach to fundraising was probably not the best advice. But overall, on any given day, the best advice I can give someone is to present your company, your team, and everything in the most straightforward, transparent manner, and understand that if you are getting a partner, then it's like a relationship. If you trick them into being part of your universe, then it's going to leave a very bad aftertaste, and it's not going to work out well. So honestly, the only thing I would say is just be transparent about the company, right? And have those open discussions. The key thing that you have to understand is that we finance people to answer questions about the future. So that's the risk we take on. There are so many unknowns, and we're going to try to figure this out together. Now, if you and your investor are not on the same page as to what those unknowns are, or what we are trying to find out together, then it's not going to work out. So a good, honest discussion always works.
So honesty is part of the problem that you can face here. Some of the founders are not honest with you when they are come to you to fundraise.
Yeah, almost. Almost everybody approaches this like a game of poker. I have my hand, you have your hand, and that's fine. That's understandable. That is an element of it. But the other element of it is that once we show our hands, we're together. So what next? So there has to be some sort of base level of what is it that what will the next year look like, right?
I want to. That's a very important point because we don't care if things go wrong. We actually like it when things go wrong and want to know when things go wrong. And sometimes we find founders who are trying to hide it from us and not to tell the investor and know, oh, this happened. That's actually the wrong part, not telling us. Just to add a couple of things from what we're seeing today, I think one mistake we're seeing is founders not knowing or paying attention to their unit economics. It's one thing to do that while you're raising. It's another thing to actually do it after you raise. And we see founders who focus on it while they're raising, and then they're like, oh, we got the money, now we can party. Okay. And I think this is a lesson everyone learned in the last 2 years, the unit economics, growth at any cost type thing. I think the second, in our region, go after a big enough market, because you are going to pivot. If Elon Musk pivoted 10 times, the chances of you pivoting are very, very high. And if the market, is too small, then the window to pivot within that market is very small. So make sure you're going after a big enough problem where you can figure out a go-to-market, strategy. The third, I'm giving you random ones that we're seeing today, is cap table management. The number of companies we're getting, me and Hany are through Sawari and us through Silicon Badia, we're Series A plus investors. Okay, the number of companies we're getting whose cap tables make them uninvestable because they gave up too much equity early on and now have to raise at a much higher valuation, which makes it uninvestable for us. There are solutions around it. None of them are pretty, especially for earlier investors. But we are facing this problem. Now, I don't blame the founders, right? Because there aren't that many sources of capital. So they have to raise, and then you get some, I'm not going to use a bad word, investor that comes in and takes 30% of the business. So just be very conscious as founders about cap table management. And the fourth, spread your money amongst multiple banks. Don't put your money in one bank.
Oh my God, I wake up and I never thought that deposit security was a risk that I would have to face in my lifetime. Oh my God, it's weird. But again, that's what I admire about the Americans. The swiftness with which they will sort this out will be very impressive, even if they don't bail them out, right?
I guess tomorrow we will see what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Shubhana, I think they should have. What a lot of people don't realize is SVB is a global problem. It's not a U.S. problem, yes. And we see it in Egypt. We were surprised the number of Egyptian companies that have almost
funds.
Sorry?
And funds as well.
And funds, for sure. In Dubai, UAE, Saudi, China, Brazil, Europe. So one thing I didn't like is I don't think they came out fast enough to give confidence to the market that
no, they didn't.
Solution would be resolved.
No, they didn't. The federal government or FDIC could have said,
exactly,
we will backstop the deposit loss. They didn't. They took it to receivership, and they're going to probably sell the assets, and there could be a haircut on the deposits. But personally, I think that was a political decision. I think that was DC taking its revenge on the valley. But
because the emails we got, first email was, okay, we're not an SVB. Great. Second email was like, we are in XYZ small bank, and now we're closing with this bank and moving to Chase.
Of course.
So effectively, if you're not in the top 5 banks right now, there's another run on the deposits. right? Running the bank.
The next one is First Republic.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so we'll see how that plays out.
So I guess that we ran out of time, but I guess there's time for a question or two. So is there anyone who want to ask questions for our panelists?
Yeah.
There's one up there.
But really, people want to ask questions. There's Elizabeth.
Hi. My question to Namek. He said that it's like good to make this exiting series and this, like healthy for the economy. I think that this reached a point that it was like redundant to make the same thing. And yeah, I see that the companies that
بدك تسأل بالعربي، يعني أنا بحكي عربي بس مش مصري، بس اسأل بالمصري احكي.
وانا ممكن هجيب له لو عايز يعني.
اسأل بالعربي.
يعني موضوع الاكزيتنج بيحصل كتير نفس الفكره، ممكن نفس والشركه نفسها اللي بتاخد الافكار دي بتكوير الشركات الصغيره دي. يعني اعتقد الموضوع تكرر لدرجه ان يعني اصبح مبتذل شويه.
حضرتك شايف ان في اكزيتس كتير زياده عن اللزوم؟
لا عم بحكي ريبيت اوف ايدياز. انا في افكار عم تتكرر عم تحكي.
عادي.
بعطيك اكزامبل. يعني نحن عندنا شركه بمصر we're a big investor اسمها بوسطه. Okay, last mile logistics provider. When they came to raise from us a few years ago, okay, we were still as an ecosystem going through the failure of Fetcher. Now, we weren't investors in Fetcher, we didn't go through it, but a lot of our friends and peers did. Okay, so the first reaction was, please, no, thank you. You know, Fetcher just failed. This is a hard problem to solve, etc. That's the first reaction. That's our job as VCs is to be open-minded. If you're not open-minded in our industry, you know, you're finished. So we took the meeting and dug in and listened to the founders and saw why they were different. And alhamdulillah, the company is doing very well. So you're going to keep seeing a repeat of ideas. Someone's going to hit it right? And that's when, you know, you capture the magic in this space, you know.
It's an open market. As many people can come in, and you either somebody succeeds, nobody succeeds. Maybe it works this year, maybe it works next year, but you can't stop them.
Okay, I really enjoyed this panel. A lot of insights from you both, and thank you so much for joining me on this panel.
I'd like to thank Namek because he came, and some of your colleagues here. We'd express our condolences to your loss, Fatar, and on behalf of myself and the whole community, I really thank you. I really appreciate you coming under such circumstances. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.